Sifuna.
Honorable Speaker, in the life of this Parliament, today will be remembered as perhaps the most historic afternoon. And it actually breaks my heart that we are rushing through this matter that is one of the most important matters this Parliament will handle in its lifetime. I wish that we had given members enough time to read and internalize and understand what we are about to do this afternoon. Honorable Speaker, the Joint Committees of Energy of the National Assembly and the Senate have produced a report that is over 170 pages. How I wish, Honorable Speaker, this House, before giving consideration to this matter, would allow members to actually go through what this report talks about. I am surprised that the committee on which I sit on has recommended that we approve this field development plan. Honorable Speaker, I have certain challenges, and I think history will be very unkind on me if I do not bring this to the attention of the country. When this field development plan was reported or was tabled here and brought before our committee, Honorable Speaker, we identified 4 red flags that we thought would first have to be addressed by the contractor, Gulf Energy, before we could give a stamp of approval on this particular field development plan. A field development plan, in very simple terms, Honorable Speaker, sets out the obligations of the oil exploration company and what they're expected to do, and the entire plan of bringing oil out of the ground. In very simple terms, Honorable Speaker, Kenya has adopted a mechanism of oil production where we have something called a production sharing contract. What that essentially means is that the person who's given the contract to develop the oil fields will put in their money in the first initial stages or in the early days, and then whatever comes out of the ground, there is a percentage that goes to government and there's a percentage that goes to the contractor themselves. The first red flag, Honorable Speaker, is that the initial field development plan that we had signed had set a capping of the recovery rate for the, what they are calling recoverable costs. The costs are not recovered 100%. They are recovered at a certain rate. The initial field development plan had capped it at 55%. So the contractor would recover 55% from whatever oil is produced in the first year, and the 45% would be what would be available for splitting between the government and that contractor. Honorable Speaker, on the 24th of November, 2025, that 55% was moved to 85%. What that tells you is that when the oil comes out, the contractor, first of all, takes 85% of their costs from whatever oil is produced, leaving a paltry 15% available for sharing between the national government and the contractor. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, the definition of what are recoverable costs covers largely what are called capital expenditure. The capital expenditure, the definition of that capital expenditure, Honorable Speaker, was altered in the initial field development plan to include what we call recurrent expenditure, things like labor, Honorable Speaker, that are essentially not capital expenditure. And that was the second red flag. We did receive submissions, Honorable Speaker. I just want to talk about this question of recoverable costs for a bit. There was a submission by the Office of the Auditor General dated 11th of February 2026, Honorable Speaker. And the Auditor General addresses this question of the audit of recoverable costs, because the recoverable costs cannot be left to the contractor to say, by the way, this is what I have spent this particular time. There has to be an objective way of ascertaining what those recoverable costs are. The Auditor General noted that this responsibility of auditing had been placed on EPRA, limiting the scope and ability of the Office of the Auditor General to determine these costs. And Honorable Speaker, that even in the period that exploration has been going there, that no approved costs had ever been submitted for audit. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, the lack of audit has denied us, this is the words of the Auditor General, the lack of audit has denied us opportunity to determine ineligible costs, which ultimately reduces government share of revenue from the exploration. The next red flag, Honorable Speaker, was the amendment of the original production contract to exempt the oil company from any taxes. And we had hoped that these matters would be addressed before we would be asked to actually approve this particular field development plan. We went, Honorable Speaker, on a circuit across the country. I was happy that I was in Changamwe during the public participation down there. The people of Changamwe told us in no uncertain terms that what they expect in Changamwe is not crude oil being tracked and being stored at the facility in KPRL awaiting shipment, but they wanted a revival of the refinery in Changamwe. That is what they told the committee, Honorable Speaker, and that is what they're expecting. That is
Senator Chirankere. You knew you had 5 minutes, Honorable Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this report and under able leadership of ODM party leader and the